This is The Charlie White Show.
Welcome back to another Charlie White Show on the Indiana Talks Network. Well, let's get right to it. Just in time for Christmas season, when motorists, whether they're from Indiana or elsewhere, will be taking to the roads to visit loved ones. Just in time for Christmas, we have another problem with our Indiana roads. We have here from WTHR Channel 13 a story, the headline: Large hole in I-65 bridge causes southbound backup in Tippecanoe County. Well, we've already seen what happened with the bridge closure, uh, the Wildcat Bridge off of I-65, and that was due to faulty inspections by vendors hired by the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. Now, whether this bridge was the bridge I just spoke about, was built during the Mitch administration, Mitch Daniels, the former Godfather governor, whether it was built within his administration, which we already know, there's already been evidence spread throughout the years since 2009 that he and others at NDOT, they authorized the altering of the acceptable aggregate mix for the asphalt that they use, and that caused them to be able to put less money into the roads, and now we see that they're crumbling. Of course, that's in addition to what happened with the bridge. But let's go back with this large hole, because this is a different hole. So WTHR reports from Tippecanoe County. They say more bridge trouble is affecting traffic in Tippecanoe County. A large hole is forming in the roadway on a bridge on southbound I-65 at the 164-mile marker. Construction crews have closed the right southbound lane until about midnight Wednesday to repair the hole. Traffic was backed up more than 3 miles behind the closure Wednesday afternoon. It's today, folks. The closure is about 4 miles south of the State Road 38 exit on the southeast side of Lafayette. Drivers are encouraged to find an alternate route, including US 52, to avoid the congestion. Northbound lanes of I-65 were closed several times this summer due to the shifting of the bridge over Wildcat Creek north of Lafayette. Well, once again, folks, like I've spoken about earlier this week and last week and months ago, when you're using chip and seal to maintain roads because Pence didn't want to spend any money for the last few years because he wanted to show, and I always call it a false surplus of 1.8 and change billion dollars, not doing the job of the state, which is one of the jobs is to take care of these state roads. He didn't do it. He used methods like chip and seal, or any method they could to make sure they could barely keep the roads operational. But at some point, folks, the roosters, the chickens come home to roost. At some point, you're going to start paying more and more for not doing a proper job. Just like how Mitch Daniels, how I said earlier, messed around with the standards upon which the acceptable standards for asphalt. We're already seeing that causing a lot of deterioration of roads in many projects, and that was all out in the media a few months ago. So, folks, I said this a year ago. It was a year ago. I said over and over again that when you want to show a false surplus, now, folks, it's easy. You could be the head of any state, any city, any county, and simply not do the job, whether it's fixing roads or, like I said the other day, or I've actually said this probably 50 times the last year, not properly funding child protective services or all kinds of different areas. Of course, you'll fund areas that'll make your friends and donors money. But if you aren't going to take care of the essential duties of your job, whether it be the city, the county, the state, if you're just going to hold back money, it's easy to try to tell the world that you've got this great surplus. And then suddenly, toward the end of your first term, or maybe your only term, like Pampered Pence is, now he's willing to spend money on roads and bridges. Well, now we see an example. A big widening hole in the middle of I-65. Folks, that's embarrassing. That hole never should have occurred. It never should have occurred. as soon as they saw a hole at all, they just should have. I mean, first of all, I'm sure that it's probably, I would not doubt, and I'm just guessing right now. I'm sure that that hole is probably should not have formed as soon as it did after the last round of construction happened. I bet this is a premature hole that's formed, probably from a project that was in the administration or even in the early Pence administration. So again, if you're I've always told you, if you value your personal civil liberties, run like hell away from Indiana, and actually don't even come here. Especially places like Tippecanoe County, you've got cops around the corner that I've said a couple months ago. Cops around the corner, state police, they'll stop you in Tippecanoe County, like that new recruit that just got out of the academy, stops a mother and doesn't like the look of her teeth and thinks she's a meth head. So, be careful coming into Indiana, because there's a lot of things that we don't do. We don't do to take care of the people, like fixing roads. And we don't have any regard for your civil liberties or your personal dignity, like in the case of the mother accused of being a meth head because her teeth didn't look the way the state police officer a couple months ago thought they should look on a routine traffic stop. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up to your attention. But we got let's just shift here a second, and like I said, I'll just say it again. Why now? Why, like I said the other day, why is Pence spending all this money now fixing roads and bridges when he should have been doing it back in 2013? I mean, I'm glad he's doing it now, and I hope they do it right, and I hope that they can put some kind of a minimum amount of bribes going on, with local and state officials that are going to be involved in right-of-way acquisition and bidding out the contracts. I'm sure they won't, though, because again, folks, this is honest to goodness Indiana. But we're going to shift over to New Jersey here. While we have Chris Christie, who I've spoken about at length, about all the things that he's done to enrich Wall Street, and I'm not actually here to talk about that today. But while Chris Christie has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars feeding himself at New York NFL games, because their stadium's actually in New Jersey, the Meadowlands. While he's been feeding himself, and while he's been getting jobs for his brother and for his wife in the past because of their connections to him, and while he's been able to leverage his friendships to whitewash investigations, especially in the Bridgegate, well, now we have an example of what happens when the captain of the state and when your elected officials are asleep at the helm. We have here the headline this is from KHOU. Actually, it's in Houston, Channel 11, but it's about New Jersey. It's New Jersey, shelter killed hundreds of animals illegally. And this is by Carly Q. Romolino from the Cherry Hill, New Jersey, the Courier Post. And it's from today, 6 hours ago. Clayton, New Jersey. She writes, the state of New Jersey is investigating the Gloucester County Animal Shelter after a surprise inspection confirmed the illegal killing of hundreds of animals and revealed unsanitary conditions of holding and feeding animals. At least one county worker faces disciplinary action. Well, boo-hoo, the Courier Post learned Tuesday. The county-funded animal shelter in Clayton is part of an ongoing investigation by the New Jersey Department of Health, according to state agency spokesman Donna Leusner. The agency performed a surprise inspection on October 21st after receiving the complaint, Leusner said. County health departments inspect the facilities yearly. Of course, they didn't look like they have been. The state makes inspections of shelters only after a complaint is filed. It last inspected the shelter in 2009. The pet, which was microchipped, this was, let's see here, the inspection came days after the Courier Post, October 13th, on the illegal killing of a Stratford woman's 2-year-old Tabby Moe. Okay, the pet, which was microchipped, went missing from her home. It was picked up by Gloucester County Animal Control on September 30th. The cat's microchip was registered to its former owner, who turned over contact information for the new owner, Stephanie Radlinger. The shelter never contacted Raglinger and euthanized him on October 1st, citing behavioral issues. Okay, state law requires all animals, whether they are strays or surrendered by owners, to be held for a mandatory 7 days before being euthanized or adopted. And State Inspector Linda Freese quibbled that, quote, holding all animals 7 days now on her checklist next to, quote, holding and reclaiming animals. So let's go on further here. The problem is that we have the animal shelter, the spokesman, let's see, Deborah Salito, said the county disputes several violations, but she says the animal shelter will, quote, take responsibility for the illegal deaths. Well, folks, I mean, this is animal cruelty in another sense. I mean, you're actually killing the animal. I mean, my God, some of these are people's pets that just got, they ran off. Within 2 or 3 days, they're getting euthanized. Now, I don't want to see discipline. I'm going to say it again, folks. I mean, to a lot of people, I mean, whether it's someone's pet or not, these animals have rights. And frankly, if people are going to get arrested for cruelty to animals, what other cruelty is there than killing them? Now, I know they can be euthanized within after 7 days, but I mean, the law is the law, right? Well, at least for some of it is, but the law says what it says. And so what I want to know once again is, when are these people going to be arrested and prosecuted? Who cares if they get suspended or some disciplinary action? I want them to no longer be working for an animal shelter. They shouldn't be working for the government. They need to have the cuffs put on them, and they need to be arrested. They need to sit in a jail cell. They need to be prosecuted. Now, if you think I'm being a little harsh, well, remember, folks, remember who's talking. Remember how the frenzy came. The wild-eyed, ape-like frenzy. Discarded all law. Hung me on the highest limb of the highest tree just because people wanted power. And so people suspended the operation of law. So please don't get me started. These people need to be prosecuted swiftly. They need to be arrested. They need to be talked about for a year every day. They need to go to jail. So I don't understand why this is a hard concept. They killed animals. We're obviously arresting people for cruelty to animals. We're arresting people for using animals for dog fighting and cockfighting, and not all these animals are dead. So why is it suddenly okay for people to kill people's pets? Let's not call it euthanize. Let's call it kill, because that's what it is. They're killing people's pets within a couple days because they're a pain in the butt. And frankly, I don't know why they're running out of money. There seems to be plenty of money in state coffers. Perhaps if New Jersey wasn't spending $335 million last year in paying Wall Street executives performance fees, they're actually underperforming, compared to all the other states in the union. Perhaps if just a tiny fraction of that amount was used to shore up animal centers, and that's just one area, perhaps there would be the money and the resources to be able to take care of this. But folks, the answer is not simply just to, kill these animals. So again, they know what they're doing. They know what they did. They intentionally and knowingly killed animals. So they need to be arrested, need to be prosecuted, and they need to go to jail. We don't need to be, 3 strikes and you're out, or we need to put you on paid leave away from home or unpaid leave. No. They need to be arrested and prosecuted, and they need to go straight to jail. So, like I said, if you don't agree with that, if you just think animals should be killed within the 7 days against state statute, and these people did it knowingly and intentionally, if you don't agree with me, please email me at indiesentinel@gmail.com. You can be on the program if you want, and let's debate me on whether or not you want animals to be killed, especially people's pets, within 7 days. And tell me why these people should not be prosecuted and they shouldn't have the book thrown at them. I just want to know what your opinions are, especially if you disagree. I mean, I'm one of these nodding heads that just simply wants to hear from people that agree with me. Because in theory, folks, in a democratic republic, in a land that is allegedly free, I say allegedly, it's allegedly free. You allegedly have First Amendment freedom of speech rights. You're supposed to be able to debate topics, and this is a show that's more and more, it's going to be very open to debate. But the problem is, folks, you got to have people that are courageous to be on here and debate. I'm not talking about cowards and partisans that engage in rhetoric that throw little rocks from behind their mama's skirts. I'm not talking about the cowards. Make one little comment, do little drive-bys, and then run off because they know that they're hypocritical and they know that they're liars. I tell people that will put on the big boy pants and get on the show, engage in free-flow discussion. There will be no editing. So, more than welcome, but just email me at indiesentinel@gmail.com. You'll be treated a lot fairly on this program than people like me were ever treated. You'll be treated 1,000 times more fairly, which means it'll be a free-for-all and there will be no editing. So again, the mic is always open, but it will not be a controlled environment. So that, of course, that's good for everybody, right? But of course, we know that a lot of people, the big loudmouths out there on both sides of the aisle, the partisans, the loudmouths, the minions, the pay-to-play pigs in Indiana elsewhere, that cater to the top 1% of the top 1%. We all know they'll never get on this program. We all know it because truths will be told and things will be asked of them about their masters, their political masters, that they won't want to answer because it's indefensible. It's completely indefensible. And they know it, and that's why they will never get on here because they're cowards. And they know they're cowards. So, anyway, let's go on to a different topic here. But anyway, I just wondering why these people, like I said, these cops and prosecutors and these people that kill and torture animals, I just wonder why the hell don't they just stick them in jail? It's not a hard concept, folks. I mean, if you're willing to destroy people's lives, if you're willing to go after whistleblowers or throw the law down to the trash can on things that aren't even illegal, why won't you go after people and prosecute them who, like I talked about the other day, the Piazza guy, the guy that the cop down in Broward County I talked about a couple days ago. He actually got an award for shooting that poor man. For shooting him, it turns out that he murdered him in cold blood. Got indicted for it. Guy that called the cops said he feels bad about the whole situation now, and that the guy never aimed his weapon at him. It wasn't even a weapon; it was an air rifle. Okay, really. But the point is, I mean, yeah, he's getting indicted, but what about the cops that lied on the report, lied in the investigation, altered evidence? You see, why aren't they being prosecuted? I don't want them. I mean, folks, people like that, they don't need to be given a suspension. They need to be put in jail. They don't need to be near any other investigations ever again. And if you don't agree with me, then you go ahead, and I personally can speak for this for myself. Until a cop has done something to lie and cheat and steal, not steal, but lie and cheat on his own report where he committed perjury on it, unless it's happened to you, you haven't been there. If they haven't done it to you or a member of your family, you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels. Let's shift to another topic here. This is a topic that's been bubbling over in the state of Indiana. But if you're listening from another state, all states, I think pretty much all states have some kind of testing for students. And, this is something that for various degrees are controversial. It's not just because of the testing itself and the time that it takes, the money that it takes to do the tests, administer the tests, as well as to do the scores. And we know in Indiana we're completely incompetent and incapable, as we've seen with CBT McGraw. They're completely incompetent at actually giving out correct grades. But, and it's the other controversy that, whether you agree or disagree is when you've got less scores, assuming the grades are correct. That's a big if. Assuming the grades are correct, then what do you do to the teachers? What do you do to the school system? I mean, what happens? I mean, what do you tie salaries to? But this is a report from WLFI.com. It's WLFI TV News, Channel 13 in Lafayette, Indiana. And the headline is Lawmakers Eliminating ISTEP, a Possibility with Latest Investigation. This is by Alexis Moberger. This is from December 15th, 2015. It says here, Tippecanoe, Indiana. Boy, Tippecanoe, Indiana is a hell of a place to go, it sounds like. And of course, that's where the Godfather governor sits in his presidential mansion. He runs and hides from when he goes 2.5 times over the speed limit and gets away with it on camera. Let's see what Alexis has to say. She writes, Lawmakers say ISTEP testing could be eliminated or only a small percentage could be counted. This comes after a computer malfunction that found scores on students' exams to be incorrect. The Indiana Department of Education is investigating what went wrong in McGraw-Hill's computer system glitch that led to a possibility of grading errors on ISTEP exams. West Lafayette Community Schools Corporation Superintendent Rocky Killian said regardless if the results came out on time, there is no evidence that the ISTEP test gives any indication on how a student is doing. Rocky said, quote, "It hurts students, it hurts teachers, it hurts communities. The glitch not only affects teacher bonuses, but evaluates teachers incorrectly," Killian said. School ratings could also be in jeopardy. He goes on to say, quote, "My colleagues and I have been doubting for over a year and a half that this is a train wreck waiting to happen." And then Alexis goes back to write, "The deadline for ISTEP results was December 4th, and still no results have been released." State Senator Ron Alting calls ISTEP a nightmare. Senator Alting said, quote, "If this senator has anything to do with it, if they will get the bonuses and their evaluations based on that. If the investigation comes up and it's as bad as it seems now, this should not be based on the ISTEP scores." Lawmakers are currently deciding on how to fix this, and State Representative Randy Truitt said there are two options, and the first would be meeting with the State Board and the Indiana Department of Education. And Truitt said, quote, "If you look at the pie, and the pie is split in certain percentages, and right now the percentage is so high on ISTEP, one of the things that you can do is make that piece so the piece so tiny that the impact would be minuscule." Well, okay, I'm going to stop here, but you get the point. This has been all over the news. I talked about it a couple days ago. But folks, the other issue is here. Well, if we are going, and I personally have no problem with them diminishing the effect that ISTEP has on how you grade teachers, how you grade schools, how you grade students. I have no problem with that. But if we're gonna make its impact less and less, then the issue is, why do we do it? Now, I don't know. I mean, I haven't thought that through a lot. Should we even have an ISTEP test? But do I think that we need to have probably fewer days of ISTEP? Yeah. And if we have ISTEP, I can see theoretically how it can be a good diagnostic tool to generally see how kids are doing. But if you look a little deeper, folks, sometimes kids, sometimes have you ever heard of kids, or I don't care if they're in college, law school, or some graduate program all the way down to first grade, there are some kids that do well on writing samples. There are kids that do well when you read and you fill out the little ovals on the optical scan cards. There are some kids that you might have one kind of intelligent student that is pretty smart, but they read slow. They get through tests slow. And there might be others that take these standardized tests very well. I'm not going to say that people that take standardized tests well are not intelligent, but on the flip side, sometimes people that may not score as high on a test like that, those huge standardized tests, they may do better when it comes to things that are more subjective, that are just as valid as filling in a bunch of ovals. They might do better on normal tests. They might actually do just as well out in the real-time community and all kinds of things. So that's the other issue I have with this test, is that some people, when it comes to these particular kinds of tests, simply are not they're not as good as they would normally be, and I don't know why. And when I say that, it also does not mean that a school system and a teacher is failing these students. I mean, they're failing in their duty to perform as a teacher. So, those are just my... Now, on the other hand, I will tell you this, though. There are people that will not want to get rid of the ISTEP. It's not because of... It might be a useful diagnostic tool. And you can have diagnostic tools out there that aren't tied to someone's salary. They aren't tied to whether or not you close a school down or you put them on super double secret probation. Okay, so just because you use it as a tool doesn't mean you need to tie it to salaries and bonuses. But I will say that when it comes to this test, you're going to have other people that will fight tooth and nail. And on the front end, they're going to say because they believe in education. But really what the problem is, and this is where it relates to you and you working every day and paying your taxes, is that they really want the ISTEP to remain in place because they want to help feed their donors. They want to help feed the people that feed them. They want to help feed the corporations, the mammoth companies that make money off of public schools, off of charter schools, off of any schools they can find. These are the people that create the tests, administer the tests. They come up with massive programs, and they end up taking care of other software designers who end up having glitches in the system where people are given grades that they either did not earn or they earned and they didn't get as good of a grade. So you're going to have people out there, folks, that are going to scream and yell, but they're not really out there for the kids. They're out there for themselves. And they're out there because they want the state of Indiana to write big, massive checks to feed these state vendors so they can mess up and they can cover it up. It's the same situation when you have computer glitches over at the BMV. We've all heard about it. I've talked about in this program quite a bit. What is it with all these computer glitches? What is it? You'd think you hire professionals, you pay them a lot of damn money, and you figure out they didn't do their job. And I've said a couple days ago, these people need to be fired. That's McGraw-Hill. They need to be fired immediately. We don't need to have a hearing. They need well, I'm kidding, but they need to be fired immediately. And frankly, if there's anything they need to pay back for their lack of performance. I mean, if we're going to pay people to perform, well, if they don't perform, I mean, haven't we heard this from a lot of so-called conservatives who have talk shows? Well, you pay for performance. Well, exactly. This shoe also should fit when it comes to big, rich, fat cat state vendors. If you don't perform, pay the money back or pay a portion of it back because you failed. You failed the people of Indiana, and you got big fat check that came out of the general fund essentially. Yeah, it was maybe earmarked for education purposes. But you got a big fat check. You didn't do your job. You didn't do your job. And who cares if you did the work right? I've been through all that personally. When the frenzy said, who cares if you did hundreds of hours of work? Who cares? About me. So all the shoes on the other foot. These people are making far. They're making millions. So they need to write a check back to the people of Indiana. Big fat apology. I'm not saying they need to go to jail in this situation, of course. But what I am saying is that maybe they need to find another line of work. Because when you put out thousands, I mean, to the big wigs, folks, yeah, this is annoying because it's splashing out in the newspaper. I find it annoying because I can completely understand what each individual child and their family are probably going through right now. And also what individual teacher that probably worked very hard, or school administrator that probably worked really hard, and they have to wonder what the hell's going to happen to their career or their job or their salary or their bonus because of this stupid ISTEP. That we've changed different subject areas, we've changed the approach, we've lengthened the test, we've shortened the test, and everyone's running around trying to hire as many vendors as they can so they can keep soaking and bilking the government. Frankly, if we could find a way not to treat the ISTEP with such great care and spend so much money, maybe some of that money could be put to better use in the classroom than having this stupid test. Like I said, these people have already proved that they can't do the job, so I don't even know why we need to even discuss this, and I don't know why they just don't end the thing this year. I mean, honestly, why? Why blow more money? I mean, Bosma acts like it might end, but it won't be in this session. Why not? Why not, Brian? I mean, you want to hold the big captain's chair. You think you're going to be governor someday in your mind, in your fantasies. Well, why don't you act like you're the captain of the ship? Try to end ISTEP. Try. Don't go through another year. Well, why, Brian? You know why? Because he doesn't want to rock the boat that much. He doesn't want to anger these state vendors who are going to keep getting more money. No, end the contract now. Brian, run government like a business, right? If you're running a business and you had a vendor for your private business or for a publicly traded company that was messing up all over the map and making your state or your company look bad, you get rid of them because they violated the contract. They didn't perform. But Brian is not thinking like someone running a business. Brian's thinking like a politician. He doesn't want to anger these state vendors. And that's really, at the end of the day, what this is all about. It really is. And it is a shame. But But with that, we are going to go to a break. Stay with us. This is the Charlie White Show on the Indiana Talks Network. At Roof Home Mortgage, we understand that every borrower is different, so we offer a variety of products to meet your individual mortgage financing needs, including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, new construction, first-time homebuyers, reverse mortgages, and of course, refinancing. Want to learn more? Just call Brian Graham, the Mortgage Man, at 260-248-8333 or visit him online at ruoff.com/Brian Graham and let him help you finance the home of your dreams.
When you're looking for a new home, why not seek the counsel of a friend that happens to know the Indianapolis area housing market better than the back of their hand? Doug and Morgan Lathery and Star Real Estate is a family-owned business that can answer all questions about buying or selling a home. Contact Doug and Morgan with Indy Area Homes or simply log on to indyareahomes.com to find your new home today. Now you can listen to Indiana Talks on your smartphone. Download the TuneIn Radio app on your iPhone or Android and add Indiana Talks to your list of favorites.
When you're looking for a new home, why not seek the counsel of a friend who happens to know the housing market like the back of her hand? Natalie Letterly of United Country Natalie L. Real Estate can answer all questions about buying or selling a home, and she can provide valuable information that's important to your family. Natalie will provide you with a detailed summary of area schools, nearby amenities, and homeowner testimonials about the neighborhood of your choice. Call Natalie 260-388-9588 and start looking for your new home today.
Ralph and Ava's Cafe and Catering, located just 15 minutes southwest of Indianapolis in Mooresville, is the only full-service caterer you need to call this holiday season. Let Ralph and Ava's take the stress off you. Ralph and Ava's will deliver, set up, tear down, clean up, and all you have to do is entertain your guests. Call Ralph and Ava's Cafe and Catering today at 317-834-9780.
The Badass Teachers Association gives voice to every teacher who refuses to be blamed for the failure of our society to address poverty and inequality. We are an education activist group of over 53,000 nationwide who are fighting against the destruction of public education. We are calling for an end to school closings, high-stakes testing, Common Core, lack of funding, and lack of resources for our children. Please join us in our fight on the web, Facebook, and Twitter. We're the BATS, the Badass Teachers Association.
Doug Martin's Hoosier School Heist exposes the wealthy people, theocrats, hedge fund managers, and corporations who are stealing our Indiana schools. Learn about felons, plagiarists, banksters, dictators, child abusers, and even 2 prostitutes. From Muncie to Munster, professors, firefighters, and mayors are calling this book a must-read. One reviewer even said, "This is one of the scariest books I've ever read." Go to HoosierSchoolHeist.com and buy Doug Martin's Hoosier School Heist now.
This is The Charlie White Show.
There's blood in the streets, it's up to my ankles. Blood in the streets, it's up to my knee. Blood in the street, the town of Chicago. Blood on the rise, it's following me.
Thanks for sticking with us. This is the Charlie White Show on the Indiana Talks Network. And we have here a news story. Now, this kind of surprises me a little bit. Let's see here. We have, it's from the Indianapolis Star. And it's from 4 hours ago. It's from Shari, I'm going to get this name wrong, Rudovsky. Shari Rudovsky. The headline is New Hospital Brings Fresh Approach to Indiana Mental Health Care. And Shari writes, a $120 million state mental health facility will be built on Indianapolis' east side, ushering in a new approach to treating mental health and addiction, Governor Mike Pence said on Wednesday. The 159-bed hospital on the campus of Community Hospital East will serve as the flagship of the state's mental health system, which includes 6 hospitals across the state. When it opens in 2018, it will replace one of those 6, the LaRue D. Carter Memorial Hospital. It will treat about 1,500 patients a year. Governor Mike Pence said, quote, this new institute will serve as the centerpiece of our ongoing commitment to improve mental health care and address the scourge of addictions in Indiana. The Neurodiagnostic Institute will focus on treating patients earlier in their mental illness, diagnosing them correctly, stabilizing them, and allowing them to return to the community for ongoing care. Patients with other medical needs such as heart disease or diabetes will receive treatment for those conditions at the same time at Community Hospital East on Ritter Avenue. We have here the, let's see, Pence ends by saying, quote, this is a new era for the treatment of mental health and addiction. And of course, the construction of the facility will begin in April of next year. At the same time, the Community Hospital Network is in the process of replacing the 60-year-old hospital on the east side. Okay, now, folks, first of all, on the surface, this seems like a good idea. I mean, without knowing anything more, I mean, who knows? We might find a lot of other problems with all this, but, this appears to be a decent idea. Now, I mean, I have a few rhetorical questions or some comments about it. First of all, it would have been nice if he would have done this earlier. And I've said this about INDOT. I've said this about a lot of things. We have FSSA, and of course, remember, we have Seema Verma, the conflicts queen, who is basically runs FSSA. When they found out there were massive conflicts with Seema Verma getting over $1 million from Hewlett-Packard to help choose them as a vendor, when that was one of her jobs she got paid for as a state vendor, was to choose them. Well, she chose someone that was paying them. Now, folks, if it would have been you and I, it would have been official misconduct. It would have been a felony. And I would just wonder why Seema Verma isn't in jail right now. I'm serious. Why didn't they put the cuffs on her years ago? Why isn't she in jail? Why is she going to RNC events, big fundraising events, and people paying $50,000 to $100,000 to hear her speak at resorts in other states, like she did out in Carlsbad in late 2013. Why'd she do that? Now let's go back to this. Now it seems to be a good idea, but I have to ask first of all, why now? I mean, we've had a lot of these problems before. Why are they doing it now? I mean, it would have been nice had Pence done his job in 2013, 14, and now we're almost at the end of 15. It would have been nice if Pence would have fixed the roads. It would have been nice if he thought to, adequately fund the battered women's shelters, if he would have adequately funded under state law, the 18 out of 19 of the DCS districts that were woefully underfunded, in violation of state law, mind you, about the amount of, in regards to the amount of caseworkers they had to hire. But I've said this back in March, folks, and in April. I said the problem here is that when you create an atmosphere where where our government officials, on the top 1% of the top 1% and their minions, and they occupy both parties, folks. A lot of them sit on the same boards. Their kids go to the same fancy schools. They all have third and fourth homes in the same communities outside the state. I mean, folks, when you create an unbalanced society, when you've got people that are getting bribes, illegal gratuities, whatever you want to call it, and there's no rule of law for the top 1%, there's no rule of law. They do whatever they please. They do whatever they please to people, and there's not money, like to help out the people. They talk about, try to stem off addictions. Okay, fine. But look how much wrangling there was as they were trying to deal with the AIDS problem down in Scott County. All these people climbing on the steeple, even though some of their kids have had addictions, they probably have addictions. Climbing high on the steeple, talking about how they don't want to give out clean needles to people. They didn't want to spend the money. to try to fight the addictions down in Scott County. I'd say, first of all, I think it's generally a good idea. But frankly, you know, frankly, it's kind of like, once again, it looks like that Pence worked on all the issues he really liked, all these social issues. It's not really what the governor's office is all about. It's really what Congress people are about, fighting over these social wedge issues in Congress. So it looks like to me, probably hired someone behind the scenes who's actually only half brain dead, who's actually said, hey, Governor Pence, you actually have to fix these roads. Let go of some of that surplus money. And someone actually whispered in his ear, hey, Governor Pence, if you can roll out of bed, maybe as a new idea, we should help push forward this $120 million hospital center. Help, fight mental illness. Maybe we should do that. Well, why weren't some of these ideas, even if he didn't have the money, he could have been pushing for this stuff 3 years ago. He could have been pushing for it so that if it started now, it would have looked like he was pushing for it the whole time, because he would have been. But instead, these ideas that are coming out that make him appear allegedly as if he might be a little bit more governor-like, it's obvious to me that some of these nincompoops that he hired for the wrong reasons, because they acted like they were into God, and I know some of them that absolutely are not into it, but they just fooled Pence, and it shouldn't have been a reason to hire him anyway. But, I mean, why now? That's my first point. My second point to all this is I can't wait, especially with FSSA involved in this, and Seema Verma, the conflicts queen, who should be behind bars right now. I mean, folks, if it were me, I would already be in jail for that. If it were you, you would be in jail, assuming that you weren't a bootlicker of the top 1% of the top 1%. If you do what you're told, then you'd probably be okay. But if you disagreed with them on 10% of what they said, on things that you really had heartburn with, then they would end up calling their little minions like Shella and Jim Shella, or Matt, idiots like Matt Tulling. You would have had your reputation smeared, and they would have just gone back to normal the next day. And the next 10,000 people that are wrapped up in it, they would have said, oh, this is no big deal. But folks, in this situation, now we have Seema Verma, the true FSSA secretary. Now that we have a conflicts queen that remained after they got rid of Deb Minot, who found out the conflicts, I just can't wait to see the bad end of all this. And what I mean by that is I can't wait to see who actually, there's probably some land deals. There's probably some deals with vendors, deals with construction folks, vendors. There's probably different, there's probably land. Like, even if they own the land, there might be land across the street where they chose one spot instead of another to make somebody rich who actually, speculate and bought some old homes across the street so that he can sell them for a killing or build his own property. I mean, there's so many things that go into this. I just can't wait to see the fly in the ointment. And I hope there's not. Okay, that's my second point. Third point is I kind of got lost a minute ago. I wanted to make this point. When you're in a situation where the top 1% of the 1% do whatever the hell they want, they scoop in all the money, and the state, obviously, by their actions, under the Godfather, Governor Mitch Daniels, remember, this is the man who, they lied about mortality figures, remember? I'm not forgetting that. They lied about mortality figures through the Department of Child Services. I mean, who would do something like that? So you got these people engaged in activity. If there's, horrible economics, even though, the IEDC would have told us under Mitch's reign, he especially told us that, our economy was great. And we hear all these little rosy pictures about the Indiana economy. Well, you have misery throughout Indiana, folks. I actually had to travel quite a bit when I at first run for statewide office. For those 2 years, I was in a lot of communities, and there was a lot of hurt out there. It was kind of stunning to me just how bad things seemed once you get out of the donut counties that go around Indianapolis. There's plenty of misery in Indianapolis. I mean, don't get me wrong. But once you leave the comforts of the suburban communities outside of Indianapolis, it's a whole different world out there, and it's not good. It doesn't speak to the community, the heart of the community, or the people. But you can tell by all the closed businesses, all the closed up and boarded up buildings. I mean, it was sad. It was all throughout this state during the Godfather Governor's Mitch's administration. Well, that's what happens when people steal money, get bribes, get contracts that aren't properly bid out. That's what happens. Someone has to pay. And that's when you have a misery index. Misery index, like, rising down in Scott County. People don't have jobs. People have mental health problems. Guess what? They start abusing more drugs. I mean, they have to escape, right? I'm not condoning it, but that's what happens. And then we start having, the hepatitis outbreaks, and then it led to the HIV outbreaks, the biggest one in the country. So we were known for pig wrestling and HIV outbreaks and RFRA and state-run news agencies. This coming from a alleged conservative uber-Christian, Mike Pence. Okay, so that's what we have. But the point is that, we can have all the mental health you want. You can fight it all you want. You can throw as many drugs as you want at someone. But at the end of the day, if you create a corrupt community where money is flowing into the hands of people that give out bad grades that people don't deserve, from people like Hill McGraw or McGraw-Hill, the state vendor. You got conflicts queens like Seema Verma scooping up all the millions. You have state highway vendors bribing local and, practically, and, bribing and giving illegal gratuities to local state officials, like the guy that put me down, who called all the media, who controlled the prosecutor's office, Steve Dillinger, the county commissioner. He's still there, and nobody cares. He still spends a chunk of his time down in Mexico, him and his whole family, enjoying the trappings, and his friends. And I've never seen a guy go to so many vacations with state and county vendors. I mean, it's disgusting. Of course, he sits on the Indianapolis International Airport board. Isn't that handy? He puts his minions on the board that controls Lucas Oil Stadium. You realize how much power of the purse that is? You realize how much power he has over people that don't even live in Hamilton County or reside in Hamilton County? How much power that he has. And he is like Boss Hogg. He is Boss Hogg. He thinks he's God's gift to women too. Isn't that handy? He enjoys the trappings. But folks, that's why I'm here, and that's why he's there, is because of these pay-to-play pigs. But they've stolen your money. They've stolen your money. So when you have a society like this that they have perpetuated, you can throw as many drugs at it as you want. At the end of the day, that's not a bad thing to do on the back end, but you have to get to some of the basics, the education, getting jobs for people, not making projects more expensive because you break procurement rules, you give it to your buddies, and then you're not giving out more jobs because you're delaying building roads for 3 years because you're propping up a state surplus, which is false, because you're not doing the basic job of government that it demands. Folks, I know that I've gone through the stream of consciousness here, but folks, when you have the rise of what they might refer to as the misery index, and that lends toward a lot of mental health problems, family to family, person to person, but there's so many things that go into people having a hard time. It's not just they come out of the womb and then they're just like, there's something wrong with them. There's so many different degrees of this, so many different problems. But I bet you anything, about 2/3 of these people, their problems would be minimized and they would be extremely functional. Not necessarily with drugs, but half their problems would be over if they're able to get a job, keep a roof over their family's head, have pride. They'd still have some issues, still have to take some medicine, but it wouldn't be as desperate. It wouldn't be as desperate as it would be if you had a just society in Indiana, and we don't. We don't. And we don't have I'm hoping that some of the people that are either running for governor or people that are running for various offices on both sides of the aisle, there are good people in the Republican and Democrat parties. There are good people. They actually have good intentions. They may not even agree, but from their particular angles, I see what they're saying, and I take what they say at face value. But there are other people, however, on both sides of the aisle. They don't give two craps about any of you. It doesn't matter what comes out of their mouth. At the end of the day, it's all about them sitting in the appropriate position, or it's all about a play-to-pay pig vendor wanting to install someone so they can just keep feeding the monster. And we all can think all day long, well, who cares? Well, yeah, you'll care when your taxes rise. You'll care when you have more and more of your relatives and friends lose their jobs, or they're underemployed. They're in an area that they weren't trained to do, and they can't do the job they're doing because, after a while, there's no money for tax credits. There may be, drying up resources to not give out, you know, basically subsidize companies for things that are worthwhile. You don't have the money to do it anymore because the people that didn't deserve it, the companies that were, like Lightbox during the Godfather Governor Mitch's days, that weren't properly vetted, those people took off with the money and stole it. They didn't have a product. They didn't have a good business, but they just got propped up because they were friends of Mitch Daniels. And in turn, they either went down in flames, or they barely kept their company up enough to where they could make sure they paid Mitch and their friends back, and actually monetarily. And folks, all of that is completely wrong. It's wrong, and it's immoral. I mean, it's truly immoral. It's not an amoral. I just don't agree with them. It is immoral. But at the end of the day, folks, all of these issues that I talk about every day, they all go toward how each individual, whether they be students or white or blue collar workers, it goes to how people feel about themselves, and that goes toward mental health. And if we took care of business, we looked out for the folks, we looked out for the people, then the need for this great big $120 million hospital, there's always going to be a need for it, but instead of being able, they might be able to meet all the needs. Instead, they'll probably have a great big waiting list. So, again, maybe the first patient to this hospital should be Pampered Pence himself, because maybe he's just delusional. Maybe he's delusional because he wanted to be president, and he needs to be the first patient to check himself into this mental hospital. And people like Brian Bosma, I mean, it's obviously not a good place for children to be wandering at night around the parking lot outside the State House during session when Brian's around, and you all know what I mean. For all the comforts and trappings of power he receives out in the parking lot, the favors. But I will go on to say this, though, that some of these people on both sides of the aisle, they have grand delusions of ruling you. That includes Pence, that includes Mitch Daniels and some of his minions, that includes Eric Holcomb. They need to be the first ones to check themselves in, because obviously they feel like they're above all of you. They feel like that there's no law or rules that restrain them. I mean, my God, their tentacles are everywhere throughout our institutions and our society. They have a God complex. We don't need people like that, because people like that, they have no empathy. They cannot step in your shoes. They cannot feel what you feel. And because of that, they will never make your life better. All they will have to show for it is probably about 40 or 50 people that were enriched because of them, that have extra houses and extra cars. And so where are you and your kids? You and your kids are simply saddled with paying the debts or the bond issues on projects that made their friends rich. So folks, that's a wrap. This is the Charlie White Show on the Indiana Tech Talks Network. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you tomorrow.